are people, including people that I used to consider friends and that I sincerely hope I will be able to consider friends again at some point. But like I've lost friendships just from saying things like, I don't think Lou Elizondo's story totally makes sense. Like have questions about, images that he's shown and like like that he's shown publicly and that sort of thing. Like just completely like people have really melted down and been gotten very, very angry at me. And like the thing that I hear most from people isn't even necessarily like a rebuttal of what I'm saying. It's that like, but don't you see how this is gonna just feed the skeptics and the debunkers? I'm gonna continue to speak up when I feel like it's appropriate, when I feel like it's helpful, and I'm willing to take on the risks associated with that. I think that me being silent, if I'm being really honest, like I've been having these thoughts for a long time, and I was quiet because I didn't want to deal with the backlash, and because every time I stuck a pinky toe out and said anything, the backlash was insane and I lost friends, and like it felt like it wasn't worth it. And now that I think some of the things that I said are a little bit more acceptable, like I'm not proud of the fact that like I'm saying it now and that I didn't say it before, because now it feels a little easier. That's not why I said it now, but like I wish I had said it before.
If you have a platform, you're in some way, either directly or indirectly, going to be tapped for your reach, right? To infiltrate your fan base, or what.
The way that I had originally seen disclosure and the movement and all of this really changed a lot over the last few years, and that was disorienting and it was discouraging at times. And could be really demoralizing, and people get into this work wanting to do good and wanting to do the right thing, and also wanting to like learn more about something. And a lot of times it means that their information zones are more sullied, they're increasingly isolated, they end up having to be a part of things that maybe they wouldn't have signed up for if they had really had all the information. It's very easy to get somebody to align their beliefs with certain other beliefs in such a way that attacks on those beliefs start to feel like attacks on their identity, and then they have to defend that. And I say that being fully transparent about the fact that like I have fallen victim to literally all of those things.
Whatever, but I think every podcast should have you on, or at least discuss this topic. And I don't see why they wouldn't. I think that this conversation should be at the forefront of our discussion as researchers. Right?
The amount of people that I see like going through my LinkedIn, right? Like suddenly it's a bunch of people from Huntsville checking in on me. Suddenly it's a bunch of people from, Bell Labs. Suddenly, and I see who's starting to follow me. And I think, long story short, I get weird encouragement from the sidelines, from people who I are pretty clearly within the intelligence community being like, thank you for saying that. But the truth is hidden much more deeply than that. And each layer that you go deeper, you are further kind of into you're in some ways it's presented as like you get further into the onion and you get more access. They might invite you in a little deeper, and maybe suddenly you're getting invited to some secret meetings and that sort of thing where they're discussing the phenomenon. But you're not actually, it may look like access, but even the layer that you're in is then set up to hide the existence of the layers further underneath. So in some ways, what looks like gaining access to secrecy is actually containment. That this was the structure that was used by Hal Puthoff and John Alexander and others with the Advanced Theoretical Physics Working Group back in like the 1980s. We know that because of some memos that have been unearthed from Hal Puthoff to other members of the group talking about that specifically. What happens when that hero gets taken down? What happens when suddenly we feel like, oh, actually, maybe that's somebody I can't trust? Like, what happens when that person is like wildly discredited, whether we agree with what they were discredited over or not? Like,
what I'm trying to facilitate here is that we need to have this discussion as a community without pointing fingers, without making good guys and bad guys.
And I don't think that we should be willing to overlook things because we're more concerned about like our guy winning. And like in the community, something that we should all get better at is like just being willing to be wrong in public. Like just because you thought something before doesn't mean that like now you're tied to those beliefs for the rest of your life. It's not fun to come to a lot of these realizations. Like it's sad and it's hurtful, especially if you're somebody who's invested a lot of time and energy into some of these ideas and people, and then suddenly you start to kind of lose your trust or become disillusioned. Like I've found that it has been tough for me personally. Like going through kind of the dismantling and the disillusionment process of coming to a different understanding of what the disclosure movement is has been hard on me. Like in some ways I feel like I've lost the spark a little bit, and I wanted to get back to doing this work in a way that felt fun and meaningful. Up until relatively recently, I would have thought, you know what, there's no way that they could really be executing something on this scale. Like surely there's like bad actors, you know, but like could it really be that like a large amount of what we're seeing with the disclosure narrative, like that could be in some way artificial or curated, or like essentially some kind of theater? And what I've come to see is that like I think that's actually absolutely possible.
Being a truth seeker or what have you is, you know, it should be invigorating, it should be empowering,